I kind of wish someone would hit me up like, hey, man, if you can't dunk by 2028, I'm going to kill you.
Welcome to Think Tank with Karan Menon, a show by and for people who do not know things. It's me, your host, Karan Menon. I am a writer and a comedian. On each episode of Think Tank, we invite a different set of experts across any field to come together as a team and answer one single question. We, including myself, do not know this question until it is delivered at some point in the episode. And then at the end, we're going to take you through some of the facts that were stated and a summary of how valid they were, a vibe check, if you will. Think Tank is a Citizens Create project made possible by equal citizens. For more information, please visit www.citizenscreate.us. And now for our episode, I am so excited for this first one. I am joined by Yaz Chintaluru, MD, a resident neurologist, and Miles Woods, a comedian and screenwriter. And now, let us enter the tank. Miles Woods, comedian, TV writer.
That's right.
Has written on several shows.
Indeed.
We met doing comedy.
Yep.
Anything you want to say about yourself, Miles?
You use the phrase "chill and not annoying." That's my mission statement for every party I go to.
Yeah.
And much like a nonprofit, we know we won't achieve it, but we're in search of it. You know?
It's a good goal to have.
Going to any social activity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here and being, I would say you are chill and not annoying.
No, thank you for having me. Yes, TV writer, comedian. Sometimes people like to say I'm a contrarian, and I disagree.
Yeah. Oh. Mm-hmm. Hey. That was good.
Yeah.
That was good.
Thank you.
Yaz, we met in a very weird circumstance. I was moving into an apartment in Brooklyn, and you were moving into the apartment right underneath me at the same time.
Yes.
And then we spent a month in Brooklyn exploring, and then I didn't see you for a while.
Yeah, and then we reconnected here in LA.
Yeah.
It was pretty amazing.
Came here for residence. You were doing your rotations in Brooklyn, and now you're here.
Yeah.
How's that going?
I am a resident physician, and I'm training to be a neurologist in LA. So I'm doing my residency right now. So I went to medical school, did biology as an undergrad.
That's difficult.
So I would say like my expertise, if I even can call it that, because I'm still in training, is in the experience of training in medicine and medicine itself, as well as neurology, briefly, I would say.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, what made you land on neurology?
So I actually had like a grandmother in like when I was in elementary school that had a stroke.
Oh, wow.
And then was paralyzed on one side of her body, and as a result of that, I was like, at the time I was kind of too young to understand what was going on, but she was bedridden for a long time, and so I kind of grew up knowing her in both ways, and I felt like there's a lot that changes about a person's personality and about who they are when they go through something like that. And, one day somebody can be walking and talking and having a normal life, and then suddenly they can go into some sort of neurological event, and for her it was a stroke, and become completely paralyzed on one side of her body. And that changed her personality, changed her life. And I thought that was really, profound and also very interesting. And I wanted to understand how the brain works and how I can maybe help somebody in a similar position. And then on top of that, she was in India at the time. She didn't have great resources for medical care. So I was also passionate about helping people in need. And now I kind of have that mission to both study and become a neurologist, and maybe somebody who specializes in stroke and stroke treatments, as well as a focus on treating people around the world that need care that might not have access to it.
That was such a profound answer. I thought you were gonna be like, I thought the brain had an interesting shape.
That felt like I was in one of your interviews. For,
I kind of felt like I was, you know. Well, you can't ask a question like that to a I've dedicated my life towards this, and then I'm
true.
I have to give you the honest answer.
That's true, and it's like, oh yeah, when you're in medical school and you're choosing like a specialty, it's like you really are making a convincing case for like why the kidneys or whatever. It's
and I do feel like whoever you talk to in medicine, or even if it's not just medicine itself, like when you go that hard at something, you have to love it. Like it's kind of like in basketball, like the love for the game, And so I feel like it just makes everything worth it when you just love what you do so much.
Yeah, you know what? In hindsight, if I was ever going to like the cardiologist and I was like, "Why this?" and they're just like, "No, it just seemed like one to do." I'm indifferent, really.
Yeah, you don't want that answer.
I would not be thrilled.
That's great.
Yeah.
That was a great answer. Thank you.
That's great.
Yeah, of course.
Miles, what would you say you are an expert at? I know in our, you've mentioned a few things. You can go through. You can name all of them. You can name one of them. Anything.
I would say in a profession. My name's Miles Woods. I'm a TV writer and comedian in the loosest sense of the word. And I would be remiss if I didn't say I was an absolute expert in comedy and writing. No, I'm joking. I think I have some expertise in those areas, enough to talk about them with like a little bit of comprehension. But, the older I get, the more I feel like you can never really comprehend. I was just watching Moneyball, actually, and it opens with a quote that I forgot about, which was like, I don't remember who said it, but it was like, it's amazing how much you spend your whole life doing something, and it's amazing how much you don't know about it. And the person's talking about baseball. And I agree. So to answer your question, I'm an expert in nothing.
Wow. Well,
great answer.
I have sources that tell me that's not true.
Please, pull up my receipts.
I'm pulling up your receipts. You are a self-proclaimed expert on the topic of Donald Glover.
I'm sort of a Donald PhD, yeah.
Can we talk about that for a second? How did that begin? Do you feel like you know everything? I
feel like probably for someone who's not like a family member or a friend, I've got to be in like the upper quartile. I can tell you where you went to high school. You know what I mean? DeKalb School of the Arts.
Hey, you said it too.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Look that up. Where did it start? I was in middle school. I had just started at a new school, and I joined. My mom wanted me to join a club. I think to make friends or something. Which is a sign you're doing great as a middle schooler, that your parent is intervening. And I met this kid, his name is Matt, who, funny enough, he's my friend who's a resident over at Michigan.
Medical resident, okay.
Medical resident, that's right. And
shout out, Matt.
Shout out Matt, for real. He literally put me on to Donald, because we became friends in this club. It was called E2K. It was like a math and science club. And he was like, "Oh, have you ever seen this YouTube video?" And it was like a Derek comedy sketch video, which was Donald's like college sketch group.
What year was this?
This would have been 2008, maybe.
Okay.
2007, 2008. And he showed me one, blew my mind. Could not. It was. I want to say it was Keyboard Kid, I think. And then I think either that day or the next day, I went and I watched all of those, every Derek sketch, and it was like my formative, like, I would like to do exactly that. I would like to do, and I was very drawn to Donald because he's electric. He's the guy, and I've been a big fan ever since.
That's very interesting to me. I'm always interested by people who are like mega fans of someone. Because that is on the topic of like research or like the way you use the internet. Like some people are like keeping up to date on like they're trying to keep up to date on everything that's happening in the world. Some people pick like one guy and just read everything about that person. That's also an option.
Yes, I'm sort of a walking Club Chalamet, if you will, including all the toxicity.
Yeah.
It's interesting too because it was so early in his career. He had done Derek, and at that moment in time, it's pre-Community, and he had not even released his mixtape "I Am Just a Rapper," which was sort of like his biggest up to that point and it's so obscure. I like, you know what I mean? I'm talking about this as if it's like like we all three are like, I remember when I Am Just a Rapper came out. No, but it was pre-Community. He was still a writer on 30 Rock. So he's had quite to being a mega fan of someone, it's interesting to watch like all the stuff that they do.
Yeah.
But I feel like in the field that you're in, you kind of have to learn about one specific person and become, or at least it's a roadmap.
Completely.
Because you learn about how to do things and like an inspiration on, if this is what his come up story is, maybe I should, look into these opportunities, or it's possible for me too to come off of YouTube and go there.
Trillion%. Yeah, I think especially in entertainment where it's so informal, like you're kind of like making decisions about what you would like to do in real time, and you're like, oh, this person did improv at UCB, maybe I'll go do that or whatever.
Yeah, you're really your roadmap is really just picking a few people who you like their vibe and just seeing what they did.
That's right.
Yeah, which is different from medicine, I feel like, because medicine, you're basically told from the beginning like everything you need to do to get to where you need to go. Or would you say there's also like a kind of looseness to it?
I think that like there is a component of trust the process where like, you do the things that you're supposed to do, right? The material you're supposed to learn, the board exams you're supposed to take, but there's also a component of, humanity, trying to find who you want to be as a physician. I think mentorship is very similar, I was going to say, because I have mentors that I feel like have been formative in the way I think about patients, about medicine in general, but also like who I want to be, like kind of like who I want to be when I grow up type of thing, And I feel like studying their journey is also important in similar ways, because then I'm like, okay, so, to be, whatever position, you have to do research, you have to learn, you have to, be able to have the same type of skill sets. And I feel like what I was going to say is Donald Glover also might have been a mentor to you in a way.
I would, I'd love to get that on record.
I like that. Let's get that on record.
It's funny. My friend Matt, who I mentioned, he's a resident at Michigan. Even though it is so, or this is my observation, like, because I've known him since middle school, high school. We went to college together as well. And so I kind of watched him from pre-med to now being a resident. And even though it's very trackable, like, oh, here are the things I need to do. I need to do this major and, all that stuff. You kind of know what it is. It seemed like it was a lot of like very difficult. Well, how do I actually accomplish that? Like, oh, you need a good MCAT score. And it's like, how do you really do that? Like, like that part seemed confounding to me, where it's like, because someone would be like, study, like, what I like you technically what to do, but it's still so difficult to actually materialize. So every profession is its own form of torture.
I like that as a headline. This is actually a very interesting panel for me, because this is like the where I would have been and where I'm trying to go. What my life like.
This is sort of a Christmas carol.
The ghost of medical school past and Donald Glover future. Yeah, my
Vivian's your old business partner.
He died doing surgery. Yeah, it's interesting because like hearing, because my parents would talk about like, or my mom is a doctor. And my mom would talk about like, she was like, it would really be cool if you wanted to be an ophthalmologist like me, so I could just give you my practice. Like it's sitting here for you to take. And I had to be like, it's a crazy decision to say no to that, but also it's like you have to also ask yourself if that's what you want to do. And so this is kind of a spectrum that I'm sitting in between.
Yeah, and like you talk about your mom wanting you to do that, and then like having the roadmap. And I think like for a person that I didn't have that, I didn't have anybody in medicine in my family. I was a first generation immigrant. It is like kind of weird trying to figure things out, and you're like, am I doing the right thing? I don't know. I think it'll work out. It's a lot of like, you could do the same thing 10 different ways and get there, and it's kind of like there is a little bit of component of, it'd be nice to have it set up in a way that's like they tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Does she ever hit you up? She's like, yo, the door's still
It's
open.
I would get that. I would honestly get that like kind of renewal of the offer like throughout college. I think now it's done. Now she's like finding a new partner to like take over for her, who's like signing the contract.
She found another son.
Yeah,
somewhere.
she found a new family that would do that for her. Yeah, but the offer was definitely on the table for a while, and there was a lot of like, because what does it even mean to say you want to do like a writing or comedy? I have no way of explaining that.
Yeah, I can't even explain that to friends.
Like, what does a day look like for you? You like sit at a laptop, like you think.
A lot of laptop.
Yeah. What does a day look like for you as a TV writer? I'm actually very curious.
It's different depending upon what show you're on, or if you're on a show at that moment. If you're on a show, I would say it's much like a normal job, except you can behave in a way that I think would get you fired at a normal job.
Yeah.
Like you can make a running bit that your coworker's a pedophile, and everyone will be like, ah ha ha ha, you're right. You know? But no, you show up to a place like a studio lot or an animation studio or whatever, and it's you and anywhere from like 5 to 10 other writers. You're sitting around a conference table, and you're there for about 6 hours. Well, it depends on the show. Like 6 is like what you're aiming for, and then anything more than that is like extracurricular. So you can be there until like 4 a.m, which happens, but like not super duper often, depending on the show. And you primarily just kind of vibe and chat productively. So first 30 minutes of the day is a lot of like, someone will come in and be like, oh, I had a weird date last night, or did anyone who's watching Severance, or what, like you're just kind of chatting, everyone's getting warm. And then the showrunner, kind of like with the same energy as like a camp counselor, will be like, okay, guy, they'll pivot into the thing you need to do that day, which is like, you just get narrower and narrower as the season goes on. So you're starting very broad of like, I don't know, like what are some episode ideas, and then you flesh those out more materially, and then by the end of the season you're writing them and so forth. But at this whole way through, same process. You're just chatting. You're just sort of being like, what if this week Jerry Seinfeld bought a big dog? Like it's and then someone is gaming out like, well, Kramer's gonna be like, I wish I had he's gonna get a whatever.
Yeah.
Elaine is dating Elon Musk. And so it just gets more granular as it goes. And when you're not in a room, you're just taking meetings, really. You're meeting with production companies and studios, and in the best case, someone who is staffing a show. And then that's just more chatting. Your whole job is chatting.
Yeah. So this is kind of like very related to your job.
That's right. I'm at work right now.
I have something lined up for you if this goes well. I wanted to ask both of you how teamwork plays into what you do. How do you feel you are on a team? What does that mean to you, being on a team?
I think like in medicine, it's everything.
Yeah.
Especially as a resident, like you are always on a team with other residents usually, and then you have nurses who are a very essential part of the team, and you have your attending, who's usually like in charge of everything, who you kind of report to, make decisions. Like you double check with them, they watch over what you do because they're really the experts. And yeah, like in medicine, like the teamwork is really the only way to get things done, because there's so much going on that you get to kind of you get to rely on your teammates in a way. In that like high stress environment, that they're just as responsible, and there's a lot of trust involved, and that kind of gets the ship running. The other thing that's like, kind of part of teamwork that's really nice in general is that like good vibes is important.
Okay.
Right? Like
Yeah.
a good vibe takes pressure off of every moment. And that it's like a high pressure like scenario, but you want to have that like good vibe with everyone. So I try to get to know every person on the team, and even as like an intern resident, you get to know the nurses really well. You get to know your patients well, and then the attendings, and it's kind of everybody's making a shared decision, right? Even for patients, like it always comes down to like, do you want this? Like you're always able to say no, and so like it is really a team job for everything. I think every decision comes down to that. Yeah.
Being pro teamwork and pro vibes, I'm learning that the show House is all wrong.
Really?
I would say Dr. House, he's anti-team and anti-vibes, pretty much, yeah.
But he's a hell of a doctor.
He's a hell of a doctor. And maybe that's true in every profession, is you can be against everything the profession stands for, but if you're good at it, well, you get to keep doing your job. That's well put, I think, because it's very funny to think like in something like medicine, as the most important thing, right? Like our lives and livelihoods or whatever. Like still, your attending is like, I would like to work with someone whose vibes are good.
Yeah.
Like.
It's very encouraging to hear. That matters
yes, that's
at
right.
That level.
You can have a doctor who's a personality hire.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like overall, right? Like in every situation when it's stressful, you want to make sure everybody's comfortable with saying, "Hey, I think we should do this." Like you want to create an environment that's safe to speak out.
For sure.
Because like nursing has a different perspective than the doctors, and the patient has a different perspective. The attending has one, the residents have one.
It is, I think about it all the time, how every job pretty much across the board, like that sort of indefinable, I just like this person, is like a huge part of your job. Mm-hmm. And it's scary almost, like, to your point about being chill and not annoying. I mean, that could really have you in a bread line, huh?
Yeah, if you're not chill and you are annoying, how do you even know? How do you know?
You're cooked.
You're cooked.
And you know what? I feel like I know some not chill, very annoying people who seem to be doing just fine. So, maybe they find their perch.
Do you think some people are objectively not chill and annoying, or there's kind of like someone's not chill and annoying is someone else's chill and not annoying?
I hate to be this rigid, but I like to think of myself as an objective vibe meter. And I think if I spent 3 minutes with anyone, I can definitively out of 100 tell you where their vibe is. Like, their vibe's a 22 out of 100.
What do you think the vibes are? No, don't.
Yeah. Now we're getting toxic. And we're going to start asking him.
This is a good microcosm of how I am on a team. I create divisions. I build hierarchies in which I'm at the top.
Now we're realizing maybe you're not the chill one.
Okay.
Our prediction is coming true.
I have to run a tighter ship.
I do become a diva.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be a team. We're going to be a team in a second. And so that was important to me to figure out how we operate on a team, how we think as a team. I don't have to be the leader. I know I'm the host of this podcast. I'm going to try. I've been told by some people that I need to work on my leadership skills. And I've been told by other people that I'm a natural leader.
Different reviews.
Yeah.
And I don't know who to listen to.
Well, I'm hearing good leadership because you're saying I don't need to be the leader, which is a great part of leadership, right?
Is you don't think you should be a leader?
Or I think it's that you don't need to be the leader in every scenario. You just need to get the team working together, right? Because different tasks can be led by different members of the team.
Yeah.
Do the people who tell you that you need to work on your leadership skills seem to hate you or not have your best interest at heart?
No. I've gotten it from, maybe they don't say leader. They'll be like, you need to be better at like saying what you want.
Sure.
And
being
like
assertive.
Speaking up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which in a way is like guiding the group by saying your part, your piece, as opposed to being like whatever other people are doing, I'm just down for. Which has been kind of like a perpetual struggle for me.
That's real as hell.
So I'm like trying to figure that out.
I think every leader should have something of a co-op mentality of like, hey, we're all here. Like you just, because everybody is a component of the thing. So
Yeah.
I'm with all that, friend.
Okay. Hell yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm hosting this podcast, you know?
And you know what? I'll say
you're doing a great job.
You're doing a great job.
You think so?
Absolutely.
Cool.
You seem
The vibes
genuinely
are good. The
surprised.
vibes are good.
I thought the vibes were like, okay.
No. This is cool. And I think also like sometimes I will listen to a podcast like the first episode of any podcast. It seems like the hardest thing to do in the world.
I'm terrified right now.
That was the first episode of a podcast.
Yeah.
Being a guest, it feels very chill.
Cool.
And that everyone here, you've created a very chill environment.
Hey, I didn't even put this team together. It's all Vivian.
That's
Thank
right.
you, Vivian.
Yeah, thank
Shout
you.
out
Vivian.
Viv.
Shout out Vivian.
Yeah. Shout out
Viv
John. Shout out
seems to be
Laura.
like no Viv references.
Not attached to
We're
this.
getting a lot of this.
Not credited. The set is amazing. We kind of got
Yo,
like
this
a
set is actually sick as hell. This is
surreal
really
vibe. All
cool.
thanks to the team.
Wait, okay, I'm very curious.
Yeah.
Yes, what's the most stressful day you've had in a hospital?
That's a great.
Oh
question.
gosh. I mean, I have had short stint of being a doctor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So from June of last year till now is like my first 7 months or so of being a physician. I would say the hardest or maybe the most stressful situation is really just like based off of where you are rotating. So when I'm in the ICU, those are the sickest patients. So thus probably the more
Very
high
high
stress.
pressure.
Yeah, like, every decision is has a little bit more pressure because the person is at the sickest level in
Right.
the hospital. Yeah. And they're on life support and so you're trying to make decisions in a place that like the family, the patient, the other doctors, nurses, like every slice of information is really important to what you do.
Is there a surreality to like being in that room and you're like, oh, they're asking me, like they like,
Oh, yeah.
like they're like, how many cc's, Yaz? And you're like, let's go with 10.
Just
Like-
say a number. Like,
Yeah, there is that level of like whoa, I'm doing this now, especially in your first year when you're making that transition from student to doctor. You're like, oh, this is not practice anymore, this is practicing, I guess. Yeah, there is that. I think like the first couple times that I had to call a time of death, that was like,
Wow.
whoa, this is I'm doing this. The patient is there, the family's there. You're trying to be respectful of the patient, the family, and you're watching somebody pass away and you're calling time of death in that situation. It's like, it is really surreal. It's probably the most human I felt.
Wow.
And it definitely grounded me to like what really matters in this world, because we might all come to a place where we're just surrounded by the people we love, and that's how people pass, right? Like that's the ideal way in some ways, right?
Yeah.
And so it made me a better person, I would say, because I think about, oh, like I want to live my life in a way that I have a lot of people in that room, and
Oh
that's
my
really
gosh, yeah.
that's really all you can do, because no matter how much money you make or how famous you are, in the end, like you want that. Like that's what those people are really thinking about, I believe, at least from the outside, from seeing that. And so, yeah.
My mom is a nurse, and she's expressed a similar sentiment. She's been every stripe of nurse. I think she actually was a candy striper at one point. She's 100. But she's like been an ICU nurse and, an RN and hospice nurse and all that. And she'll say like really dark things in kind of a cheery, sing-songy way. She'll be like, your money can't save you. Yeah, it's like, and she says it with such a finality of like, I've seen rich people die. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, experiencing death. I feel like I actually have never seen. I don't know about you. I've never seen a person die.
I have now.
You had how
Yeah.
many people do you think? Could you even count? How many?
I probably around 10 so far. Like
Okay.
personally calling time of death, but
Yeah.
maybe around 10. Yeah.
It would permanently change my vibe for the worse. If I saw someone die.
Yeah.
My friend, I'll tell this story. I guess I'll ask him later if it's cool to share. But my friend Matt told me the story about the first time he saw someone die. it was in med school somewhere, and it's this old man, this like old super like maybe 100 pounds, sickly guy, and he's doing his rounds, and they call like a code blue, which I believe is someone's coding, they're dying. And his attending is like, oh, everybody come see, for the resident or the med students come see this. And so and I believe it's Matt. I think Matt is like pumping on this guy's chest, trying to resuscitate. And he flatlines. The guy dies. And so the attending is like, call it. And it's this heavy moment, that's sitting with Matt, and all of the other med students kind of file out because he's never seen anybody die. And then his attending nudges him and is like, "Man, you seeing this?" And Matt looks down, and I guess on this old man's thigh is a gigantic swastika tattoo.
Whoa.
So it goes from like this tender, like, what is life, to never mind.
Wow.
Like actually, you know what? It's not such a bad thing that this old man is dead.
Wow.
I mean, I'm editorializing there, but it sounds like the most surreal thing in the world, and it's a reminder of like, oh yeah, you treat everybody.
Yeah, we're just all flesh and blood. Like that's what makes that like clarifies that to you. Yeah, we're just all flesh and blood.
He's flesh, I'm blood. We're two roommates in Brooklyn.
I'm like Bones, the side character.
Yeah. Wow.
All right. It seems like we've been handed a little
Our first
slip
task.
here. Our task. It might be our main task. Okay.
Kill the president. Yo, cut that out.
You can't say that with two brown men in the podcast.
Do any of you own a gun?
I didn't think it would be this kind of teamwork.
We have our question for the tank.
All right.
The tank. Miles Yaz. Is free healthcare possible in the U.S.?
Oh my God.
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
And we
Heavy
have
question.
had a healthcare discussion, kind of.
Yeah,
so this is good.
This is good. This is good.
It's good.
I mean,
Everybody here has a stake in medicine. Your mom,
My mom,
your friend, myself.
yourself.
Like we have stakes
It's
and
true.
bodies.
We have stakes in bodies.
Yeah.
It's a huge question. We can figure out as a team how we want to approach this. Do we want to maybe do some discussing about it? We have to. I guess it's a yes or no question.
could you read it one more time?
Is free healthcare possible in the U.S.?
It's so funny. I'm getting like SAT brain where I'm like, I'm like, okay, possible. Like, you're
Yeah, it's like,
you're responding specifically to that word. Maybe we talk a little open forum and define some terms as we go.
Yeah.
Free healthcare.
Yeah.
Right?
What does that mean?
Yeah,
What does
yeah.
that mean? Okay.
What does that mean to you, Karan?
What does free healthcare mean to me? Free healthcare means I go in and get my healthcare and I don't have to pay a damn thing for it. But I also, it's weird because most of my healthcare, like I'm still on my parents' insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's like
are you really?
everything
paying
is
anything
free
now?
right now. I'm like paying for like, I still pay for like certain things. Like I pay for my like therapy. I pay for like, I don't really go to the doctor that much because my mom is an eye doctor. My aunt is my dentist. I feel like I have like a weird relationship with doctors because of it. Yeah. I'm interested to hear what do you guys define free healthcare as?
My first thought when I think free healthcare, because like there are models in other countries of socialized healthcare, I think to me it means like the average person who whatever like, and it's not tied to a job, right? It's not tied to my employer provides this healthcare. If they are sick or whatever and they need to go to the doctor, they can, and whatever specialty they need to follow up with, they can also go see that person. And like the treatment and the medicine, all of that won't incur debt or loss for them. That's where my mind goes.
Yeah.
And I think it has to apply to basically everybody. I would, maybe there are caveats to that. Like if you're in Canada, maybe it doesn't apply to like, not that it should, but like if you're like incarcerated. But I don't know. I don't know if if those caveats do exist. But yeah, I think for the vast majority of people, it's that kind of coverage. I think
That the government
yes, that the
covers
government is
your healthcare.
Uh-huh.
Or like some entity in general allows for free and accessible healthcare. I think accessible is important here
sure.
because it's not just that it's not expensive; it's that it's timely. If a person is sick and able to see a doctor when they need it, I feel like that's important because I feel like a lot of the counter argument towards like universal healthcare is timing. People are like, oh, like,
Right.
you know, in other countries there's a long line or wait list or whatever it is. And so I feel like accessible is, to me, like a word that I would use.
Okay. Free,
on top of
accessible
free.
healthcare.
Yeah.
Possible in the
I
US.
think-
That's what I mean, ideally that's what it should be.
okay.
right?
Yeah.
Well, also too, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, all right. Well, we know that that's not how it currently works in the United States,
Yeah.
right? That it's a private system with a public option, and so then you're wondering if that's where we are, and this is where what we're defining as free healthcare. What are the what are the
Barriers.
obstacles,
Yeah.
the barriers? So then we're saying possible means can we overcome all
Yeah.
these barriers?
Yes.
Or
okay.
or is it that the barriers are there, but nonetheless, in a perfect world, this is how.
This is what it would look
Well,
like.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That feels about right. So maybe defining some of those barriers.
What are the barriers? My brain currently is going to Luigi Mangione.
That's right. That's right.
What were his barriers? What was he doing? And I also am wondering, do I know anything about this topic? I'm trying to figure out what do I actually know? Because I feel like I've heard a lot of people talk about free healthcare, but the more I think about it, I'm like really just thinking about like 4 or 5 posts I've seen on people's stories.
That sounds right.
Like, what do I actually know?
This is my uneducated stab.
Okay.
At, like, if someone came to me and said, Miles, you are being given carte blanche to redesign the government. I think this is what it would be. Okay. So, government collects taxes, right?
Yeah.
So they have hella money.
Okay, yes.
And mostly, they're like, I would like to buy more missiles.
That's like what they put the majority of their budget into. Okay, yeah.
For various reasons, I would like to keep buying missiles. So step one would be like, okay, we have hella money. We have to say less missiles, more MRI machines in rural areas.
Yeah.
So I think it's that, right? It's you're reallocating money.
Okay.
And then I guess as it currently stands, right, there's an incentive structure for the private sector to be able to make money off of healthcare, right? That's insurance. And it's like, okay. Oh, okay, vibe.
we have some
Hell yes. And
I only got 2 pens.
that's A-okay.
Miles doesn't get a pen.
Well, while you talk, we'll take notes.
Oh, there's
look
another
at
pen
that.
right there.
Oh, thank
Now
you.
that's good producing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Viv.
Okay. So we said free. We said government.
Yes. So the government would have to
Are we
reallocate money.
Yeah.
That's probably one.
The government has. I'm going to be doing more of a visual thing over here. Government money.
Government money.
We
yes.
have the missiles.
Yeah, less missiles.
But we needed to move towards.
And you know what?
But
yeah.
we need to go towards.
Can you draw a Luigi, actually? I think we need more Luigis in order to...
Or we need more money towards healthcare, not necessarily.
That's right. That's
killing
right. Yes,
people.
okay, yeah. You know what? We need one of the two. We either
Maybe
need...
draw like a medical sign. I don't know, like the. Yeah, I like
that's
that.
right. Yeah,
not
I
a
think
cross,
that's right.
but
Yeah,
medicine.
Medicine.
Okay.
We either need less missiles or a government program to
A little
create...
heart there. I like a heart.
I'm drawing upside down, actually. This is really cool.
This is pretty good.
Wow.
This is medicine
Impressive.
right here.
Okay, I'd like to revise my answer a bit.
Okay.
We either need less money for missiles, or we need a government-funded program to create Luigis, where we sort of take like hot wayward guys, in New York or Los Angeles, and they got to get pilled. Hey, this CEO's pretty bad, huh?
And that will reduce the cost of healthcare.
I think so. It'll be
I don't know about that one.
It'll be a trickle down effect.
Yeah.
And they all have to have Mario character names.
Okay.
So one option is we fund a lot of real like on the verge of cracking type guys to scare healthcare CEOs. The other one is we get the money put the money into healthcare.
Yes.
And what does that mean exactly to put more money into healthcare? You said make it accessible.
Yeah, my argument would
Okay.
be to improve access to primary care.
Primary care.
So
Let's
that's
define
your
that.
Yeah, what is
family
primary care?
medicine doctors, your emergency medicine doctors. I don't know if I'm fully with the breadth of primary care,
Okay.
but kind of if you can go to the doctor more often for just in general, you go to the hospital less often in general, which reduces healthcare costs.
That's
so
preventative
it's possible,
care?
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's possible to not actually increase cost of healthcare and still make it free and accessible, I believe.
Interesting. So you
Because
mitigate
right now-
cost.
Yeah, like right now, let's take a person that doesn't have healthcare right now, right? People without healthcare don't get treated for anything until they're really sick. They go to the ER. The current policies, kind of universally, is that someone comes to the ER, you give them in general, you always treat everything you got with everything you got, right?
Yeah.
And so if they have, let's say a heart attack, very common, right, in the U.S., I think it's the number one killer in the world. Someone that doesn't get preventative care for heart health, so it's blood pressure, cholesterol, that's something you can manage for medications your whole life, then has a heart attack, needs a procedure, really expensive. ER stay, really expensive. Hospital stay, really expensive. But the pill and the yearly month, every 6 months appointment in a clinic, way cheaper. So I think that's where you save the money. Everybody gets to the doctor sooner. You prevent bad disease, then you offset the costs of you're paying for, because right now we're paying for people that don't have healthcare, that have that get really sick. We're paying those costs. So it's not like the government's not paying anything. They're paying that cost. I think it's just you have to get across to them that they could just pay this, and then those people don't end up sick enough to go to the hospital. So it's possible financially, and then health-wise, everyone's healthier, right?
Okay.
That's my
Yeah. So it's almost like right now, as it stands, of all the costs incurred in all of medicine, the bill is being footed by a combination of insurance companies, the government, and the people who are going there out of pocket, right? Mm-hmm. And it's we could get that bill to be so much smaller if instead of paying for instead of relying on the really expensive stuff, a surgery or, nights in the hospital or whatever, you're instead being what if we got ahead of this? So
yeah,
yes,
I think that's
primary
the idea.
care.
Even insurance companies want that, right? Because they want you to go to the doctor every year so they can
Pay less?
Yeah, pay less in the future if you get sick. Because they prevent you from getting sick, right?
Can I ask something I've never quite understood about medicine as it relates to money? Mm-hmm. When you stay at the hospital or whatever, and they're all right, that'll be $20,000. Is that the right price?
Nobody knows.
I mean,
Nobody knows.
that's one where I'm because I'm I look at a PET scan, and I'm maybe this item does cost $500 million. Maybe it all breaks down where it does, but then I'm in other countries, how is it possible? So I always wonder what is something I think about sometimes as an example of this is one of the few things you can actually die from withdrawal of is alcohol, right? So if you're an alcoholic, medically, you might need alcohol if you're, admitted to a hospital or whatever, so you don't die. So they have medical beer, believe it or not.
Wow.
And a medical beer, I think, is just a Coors. However,
I don't think that's true.
They have like a bar in the hospital.
All right, welcome to
It's just Grey Goose. Yeah.
but so as an item, a beer is like $2. But if you got it as like a line item on a hospital bill, it's like $75. Let's say that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so that makes me think, well, maybe it costs something to sterilize it, make sure that it's safe or whatever. But is the difference in cost for this medical beer versus just if you gave them something from like 7-Eleven? Is the price difference, justified? That's like something I wonder about, because I genuinely don't know why hospitals be so expensive.
I genuinely also don't know.
Yeah, I don't have a clue.
It's kind of a mystery, and I feel like part of it is probably because there's so many players. I'm assuming, right?
Sure, yeah, a lot of hands and a lot of pots.
Yeah,
maybe that's what pushed Luigi over to the edge. He's like, they're doing what?
Beer is $75.
$75 beer. I gotta take matters into my own hands.
Okay, so I'm trying to visualize what we've said so far, because I am a simple-minded man, and I need to read. Yeah, I just need to reiterate. So, is free healthcare possible in the U.S.? We have covered. We're like, what makes healthcare so? What are the costs of healthcare?
Yeah.
One of the ways to reduce. We have identified
a
that
barrier, right?
one barrier is that some costs might just be. We don't really know how they might be more expensive than they need to be.
Yeah.
My question for that is why? Well, I'll pin that. And then another thing is this idea that people are waiting on their problems until it like needs to be seen at a hospital, which is way more expensive than going regularly to a more normal doctor to just get like preventative stuff, so it never gets that bad.
Yeah.
So those are two things I think like that are kind of like make healthcare more expensive than it needs to be.
I think what I'm hearing when I hear that is we need more money put into the system for healthcare and to normalize healthcare too. Because I would guess the average person either doesn't want to go to the doctor or doesn't, based on like whether or not they have healthcare, how accessible it is to them. And it's like, oh, if the way that it was socially is just the average person is like, oh yeah, I can vote and I can go to the doctor and there won't be a cost burden, then you're normalizing like, oh yeah, people just go to the doctor.
Yeah.
I also think like there's a lot of things that they don't make you feel sick, but you have things that will cause problems down the line. High blood pressure, you're not going to feel it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Like high cholesterol, you don't feel it.
So you wouldn't think to go to
Yeah,
a
you don't
person
feel
for it.
sick, and so you don't go to a doctor. But if it was normalized where you always are at the doctor every year, like as a kid, we kind of did that, right?
Yeah.
So why don't we do it as adults? I think that's like
Yeah.
a question to ask.
Is why don't we do that as adults?
We should be.
Is that
We should
like
be. The answer-
because of costs, or why is that?
I think time, culture too. Like as a kid, you have a doctor's appointment, you don't need to go to school. Like, okay, right? You if you have a job, you have an important interview, important podcast to host, you're like, oh, I gotta go, I got a doctor's appointment.
I skipped an MRI
it's
to be
like,
here.
Yeah.
We need, what we need? A government program that gives every person 2 somewhat annoying parents. They're like, Karan, you haven't been since last November, and you're like, all right, okay.
This Karen is a doctor.
I was gonna say I kind of like have circumvented this because my mom will just call me. She's like, "When you're home, I have scheduled your next thing." Like,
Yeah.
I don't deserve this. Like,
No, but that's good. Yeah,
Yes.
that's what you need. I do that for my parents because I'm like, you
there
need
you
to
go.
go to the doctor because like they're in their 40s and 50s, like they should be at,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
a physician every year. But it's hard. Like life is life, and also I think there's a fear like, oh, they're gonna tell me bad things. I need to be in shape before I go to the doctor.
Okay.
I'm like, I don't think that. Like
yeah.
I think,
I think
actually,
that's a good idea.
totally agree. And I think probably, I would imagine the average person views it somewhat as extracurricular. Like, to your point about high blood pressure, this isn't causing me a trouble in my day-to-day life. And therefore, if I have a finite amount of time and energy, I'm not gonna spend it on something that maybe will help me in whatever years and years and years.
Yeah. Okay, so there's like a personal kind of thing where we should be going more often that would
reduce the cost of healthcare, which would mean it's easier to make healthcare free.
Yes.
That's kind of on the side of the patient.
A little bit.
Yeah. What about on the side of the insurance companies? Or
well, the
other
last
entities?
thing I would add to that is I think it being widely accessible would create a culture where people go more.
Okay. So if it's more accessible,
increasing
that's not just on the
accessibility.
patient. Yeah.
And then on their side of insurance, I think I would say pretty unambiguously, right? It's got to just be. I think it can't be privatized at all. Because I don't understand how this stuff works, but I think if it's privatized to whatever extent, there's an incentive to make money off of people's illness.
Yeah.
And I think structurally that is bad. I say this knowing nothing else.
That felt like when you said that made me feel really like amped up when you said that. And it felt like a really strong, it was like a clear and simple yet like effective statement.
Yeah.
And I also like get so scared whenever I used to be like a way more, first I was not a political person, then I was, and now I'm like kind of afraid to make political statements.
Sure.
Even when it's like so clear. Like that is such a clear thing.
Everybody
you know?
can agree on that.
Yeah.
You can see that trend in that everybody values themselves and their family members. And like we know for a fact, we're all going to have medical problems.
Yeah.
Our family members will. We will be in a hospital for something, for some reason, at some point, whether it's for us, for someone else. So it's a relatable human experience
Affects everybody.
to be sick or to be around a sick person. So I think like in the sense of teamwork, like we were talking about earlier, it's something we can all kind of gather around, like do this from different walks of life, kind of like what we're doing now.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't it poll really well too? Like, doesn't like some 75% of people? This is where I'm really just saying stuff.
Yo,
Some
throw a
75% of
number
people. I believe 100% of Americans want free healthcare. Like, I think it is like a very popular. I believe it's a very popular.
I think we can
idea.
say that everybody wants to be in good health and to not have it stress them out.
Yeah.
Right.
I
But think what happens is then you're worried that like if I say like, you know, if I push for this publicly or if I want like a policy in place or something, you're afraid like, is this going to affect how easy it is for me to get healthcare? The common argument about, oh, there's like long waiting lines in other countries that have like universal healthcare. They're like, oh, I don't want to have trouble going to the doctor. It brings us back to accessibility because like they're worried that you make it more accessible, or people in general are worried if you make it more accessible, will it affect my accessibility? So if it didn't, I assume everybody would be on board.
I think, I think that's right. Because if it's about accessibility, right, like, because right now, most people get their insurance through their employer, I believe. And then second would be the government. And so if the majority of people, it's through their employer and it's private or whatever, like, I guess it would have to all be governmental because otherwise, right, as it currently works, you have to have a good job that has good health insurance in order for you to get the kind of an okay version of healthcare, which is that you can go if you have a problem and it won't cost you too much. And it's like that's only available to like you're a lawyer and the company has paid for really good health insurance. But if you're just somebody at like, I don't know, you work at like Starbucks or whatever, which I believe they do offer healthcare, but like it's very difficult to get the number of hours you need or whatever, that type of a thing.
I also think, you know, there is an argument to maybe right now it's pretty good. Like a lot of people have healthcare, you know, and like all because of like.
You're saying a lot of people in this country have healthcare, like
I mean a good amount do, a good amount don't. Like, you know, that's the problem.
Is it,
and
you think it's
but
more?
some of it I also feel like is there's not great education on where to find it. You know, like if you're a person that doesn't have healthcare, how do you get it? Like where do you go? If you're a person that does have healthcare, how do you find a doctor for that healthcare like company, like, or that insurance company? Like, I think all of that is very messy, even as a doctor myself, like it's hard for me to make an appointment to go see primary care because like scheduling and like I'm like, who do I call? What website do I go to? Like, where's the portal? Which doctors are covered? Like all of that is messy, you know?
That makes me think actually like because as you pointed out, like our bodies are, for every single person, their body is super duper important. I think for things of that level of import, there should be essentially no individual hassle about it, which is to say like roads, right? We all need roads. Yeah. We all got here on a road. I've never once done anything involving a road, thought about how or why it's there, fully in the government's hands. They have it handled. I think healthcare should essentially work like that.
Yeah, it's just like a given.
It's a road type beat.
It's a road. Bodies are
what are bodies
roads.
but roads? Yeah. Now to bring it back to the original question of
I love that.
Is it possible? So we've established it would have to be like more accessible. Insurance companies would have to be reined in. The government would have to be like less missiles, more love.
Okay. Yes.
All these things. In a practical sense, I'm gonna say no. It's impossible.
Whoa!
In order to overcome all of those things, I feel pretty good about saying it is not. It's possible in the theoretical sense, you know, like that maybe I could dunk, right? I could really dedicate time and try. But no, in a practical sense, I don't think it's ever going to happen.
But if your life depended on it, in the sense of it does, right? Like in this situation, this is lives depending on it. You would do it. If I told you your life depends on you dunking in the next 3 years.
I kind of wish someone would hit me up. Like, right? Hey man, if you can't dunk by 2028, I'm going to kill you.
He's going to be ripped by 2028.
It's like, yeah, man, I've been jumping a lot.
Or are you going to
every day I see you like
jumping? I got 3 years. I'm going to have a great ass time in the 3 years. Like,
so I completely agree with that. Like, it's because it's of such paramount importance. Like, but it's not up to the people who need it. It would be like if I needed to dunk in 3 years, but I didn't set my training schedule, some other person did.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'm like, hey man, I really need to dunk, and they're like, I'm in Bora Bora, you know. Like that's like an insurance executive. It doesn't matter that much to them whether or not I dunk.
Yeah.
So I think So that's why I feel it's. But you are right. It's of supreme importance, and technically we can do it. But the people who determine whether or not we do it aren't incentivized to care about it, I think, in the same way that
I think in a way they are, though, because even their life depends on if they dunk.
But
in a sense.
If
but
all
it feels like
humanity had 3 years to dunk,
Yeah.
you know, everybody would be.
Are they
on the same
incentivized
page.
for all of humanity to be able to dunk? Because it feels like they have like an Iron Man
Well,
suit.
I think like all
they can dunk whenever they want. You know?
They can already dunk at
They
will.
can dunk it. They can dunk sleeping. You know?
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, they're like,
No.
what do I care if this 5'2"
But,
poor
like-
person can dunk? I can dunk fine.
I'm dunking right now.
Yeah.
That's a good thing you bring up of like incentivizing the people who have the power to change things to care.
Yeah.
Which maybe that's the thing you're saying is why you're saying it's not possible, right?
Yes, I think right now and if you think about it, right, and it's unclear how I feel about Luigi, but he creates an incentive, right, for other CEOs. Oh, if I don't do this thing, maybe something bad happens to me. I would think that's at least part of his logic for like
He created some incentive for them
Yeah,
to care.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's really the public, because even with that, it's really the public support / like you know.
Yes, that's
I
right.
do think that there's this incentive for everybody to perform for other people, because that's how it works, right?
It's true.
Government officials, like CEOs, like their businesses and the government relies on voters or like the public, us, to support them. And I think we get so drowned out by all the other stuff that's going on that it's hard for us to care about our own health, much less everybody's health. But if that became a priority, I feel like it would make a difference.
I think that's very legitimate. I would say that the problem at its core is if you look at like an insurance company, they have a private interest and a public interest, right? They have to make money and more money than they've made previously. And that's like their objective as a company. But they have a public interest in that they care for millions and millions of people. And so they sort of have two masters a little bit. And where the problem is created is they defer more to the first one. I'm prioritizing my private interest. And I think when I think about free healthcare, it's like, oh, what if you just had one interest and it's simply a public one? Because, if the government isn't making money off of people getting sick or whatever, then it's simply just about let's get as many people care accessibly as we can.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
There's just like it's a murky world, but I want to say it's possible. At least for like a positive outlook.
Yeah.
It's possible, we just need to band together and work together to get there, because we're all from 3 different walks of life and we all think it's a good idea and I think that everybody needs to talk about it, and that's something that doesn't happen as often. It's one of the few problems that every person faces and we can all like relate to.
I think it's true in the sense that you should frame it as possible, because otherwise what are you working towards,
Yeah.
So so I guess we're a split vote. All
right, Karan, what do you think?
Oh, God.
Sort of casting
This
the
is
die.
the scenario I did not want.
Sir,
I decide if healthcare is possible. Oh God, I think it's like, what do I even think? I feel so out of my depth because I feel like I just started being an adult like yesterday. I do think that people do need to have hope. I think that's important, because once you think it's not possible, then it's like you lose for real.
Yeah.
But it is also like so stacked, that like public versus private interest thing, where like I know you're saying like people if you like, these people depend on you for their votes or for their support, that can take them out of the position of power, so they should technically be listening to you. But it doesn't feel like that really. When you think like there's like the whole like the people with more money can influence who even your candidates are. That's when it comes to like who's in office and stuff. That's where it feels like things are tipped so out of our favor that I'm like, it's hard to understand where you can even start. Even if you band together with your friends, like what actually can you do without sounding like really naive? That's what I'm like that's where I'm kind of stuck,
I think that I agree with you, but there is people that are running it that also sound naive, right?
Yeah.
And they are relying on, like, okay, a good example I think is like stocks are similar, in my opinion, a little bit to, like public opinion can change stocks. Like Kylie Jenner can change the stock market in a day. So like if we all band together, like we could change the decisions of, if Kylie Jenner says we need people to have better access to healthcare, like I think people would listen, right? But then like we do need like people that might not be in charge but have loud voices. I always say this too, because I feel like in healthcare, in academia, like professors, doctors, like these people are very like obviously working. There's some people that are working like 24/7 on problems like this. We just never hear from them, Instead, we hear from like the celebrities about it, and then slowly we're starting to see that everybody in power is previously famous. Because I think we're at a place now that like there's so much media that you can't just be a smart person and end up in a position where the expert is running things. You become in a place where like you have to be able to speak out about what you think, and that's what gets you like power.
I think that's a legitimate notion, right? Where change and the idea about, oh, if we band together, can we make an impact? Like Karan, you're making a good point where it's like people of influence seem to have 100x the influence of like a bunch of people, and that's probably the core issue, really. Like is like can the will of the people affect change? and I'm sure it feels, and probably is, increasingly less possible as time goes on. My optimistic takeaway, though, is that at some point something's got to happen, right? Like, whether it's the system breaks or whatever, like, I don't know, but I think change is possible in the sense that, like, if eventually a car's got to break down, right? Like, if it's really not working for everybody, like, something must happen.
Yeah.
So I'm actually gonna change my vote to it is possible.
Wow.
I've
That's crazy.
On the turntable.
Wow. Good job.
Yeah, you never know.
Okay.
Just to say. Wouldn't it be funny if you bring in an expert right now and they're like, it's not possible. It's not even close.
We just ran the numbers.
We ran every scenario. It's not possible.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm down to hop on the it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I would like to maybe when we present our answer, like have a little like sub kind of note of like what we would like, you know, to be like what we think should be addressed. In without maybe sounding like we actually know the answers to everything. Obviously, we have a doctor here.
That's true. That's true.
Do you think there's anything that we missed in our analysis? Anything happening currently that you feel like is affecting things?
There's many things I would say.
Yeah.
I think that like we're probably right now moving away from it, which is scary, right? Like kind of maybe, yeah, or just in general away from trusting medicine, like we did before. And I think like part of it is fair, right? Like there's a lot in medicine that occurs. There's a lot of unknowns, and as we get more and more, I say like niche into medicine and more it's like smart as a society, you know, we're editing genes, like we're getting to places that we're like kind of blurring the lines between like what we thought was possible. I think it creates a huge divide between what the everyday person knows about what medicine and science is and what is like happening at the forefront, at the frontiers of it, which makes for a lot of mistrust, right? Like we're like, you know, not educating patients or people enough, and that creates some mistrust. And
there's just like a gap in
yeah,
knowledge.
and there's a lot of like, you know, murky water with money and insurance companies and funding, and you're like, oh, like how do I know this medication isn't just like funded by, I don't know, the big pharma or something.
Yeah.
Like these are all like words that people use, but you
like
know,
microchips in your vaccine.
yeah, exactly. But we miss the point of, you know, we're saving lives, we're saving you, we're saving your friends, your family, and like that's what's important, really, right? And I think like maybe we talked about some of the things we talked about, just barriers. We talked about like financial barriers, like economic barriers, accessibility, and maybe we need to add like communication, like between the science and the person.
Yeah, I think that feels fair because, you know, the average person receiving care, like, you know, their level of education up to that point can be anything from like no secondary education whatsoever, to they have a PhD, and the doctor is of course tasked with taking care of whomever walks in. And yeah, I think that probably also has to do with like a wealth and class divide, where it's like, oh, this doctor is in a different class than me, essentially, if they're, you know, some blue collar worker or whatever. And it's like, oh, how do you close that gap? How do you make it feel like, or actually make it like their lives are not that different?
Yeah. Otherwise, they're like the elites.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I think I when my friend Matt was in medical school, I think he told me a statistic that over 50% of graduates of medical schools graduate with no medical debt, no student debt, meaning they come from a family that can afford to put them through university and medical school, which is to say that a great number of doctors come from some kind of wealth, etc. Yeah. So I think there certainly is a class component. And I say that like it's true, but I could just be wrong.
Thank you. Whenever you feel that, please acknowledge that.
Every time
50% is a big number.
Every time I've said any number on this podcast, I'm just guessing.
Good. The more we're guessing, the better.
Right. That's right. So do we put in our final answer?
I think it's time. How are we on time? Are we feeling like we're good?
How long has it been?
I don't know. It's a good question.
It's been 1 hour and 24 minutes.
Holy shit!
Really?
Wow.
Damn.
Wow.
Wow. That's crazy.
You guys
It's a
have
lot
just
of
been
listening
sitting-
to us talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are heroes.
It's fun by. Okay, so kind of final answer. Where's that? Where did I put that index card?
So now we got to cut this entire podcast into a 15-second TikTok video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There will be moments where we'll all three laugh, and I'm like, that's usable.
I was like, good.
That's
Clip that.
content.
Is free healthcare possible in the U.S.? That was the question we had to answer. Through a lengthy discussion,
Yep.
we landed on yes. It is possible.
Yes. And I'd like to add the asterisk. It's possible, assuming everything that we know as currently reality changes drastically.
Yes. Yeah.
It's possible in a different world.
Yeah. Assuming that everything is different and better than it is, and impossible things become possible, then it is possible.
Yes.
It is possible.
In the same world where I can dunk.
Yeah.
Free
As soon as you
healthcare.
can dunk,
As soon as
it
I
becomes
can dunk.
possible.
That's right.
We highlighted that people need to be able to get to doctors more easily. There needs to be a focus on that over more expensive procedures when it kind of builds up. We said there needs to be insurance companies need to rein it in a little bit and stop charging you so much for things.
Or cease to exist altogether.
Or cease to exist altogether. Or be publicly care about the public interest more than the private interest. I thought that was a cool little phrase. And I feel really smart saying all these words. I feel really smart.
I feel pretty good.
Yeah, I feel really good about that. Oh, and making sure that people in power care about us, which might be the hardest
And
task
making
of all.
our voices heard because we all are human. And I think we're bringing us
Tie that
together.
up. Tie that up. Yes. Tie it all
We're
together.
all having a shared experience in that our health matters to
Mm-hmm.
us and our families. And so if we can band together on that, when it comes to either like the person without insurance to the CEO of an insurance company, all has families that will be in a hospital at some point. And so we need to make it accessible and free for those people that we would all want.
Yeah. I hope someone comments on this video. The guy in the beanie should die.
Surrounded by his loved ones.
Yeah, surrounded by the loved
That's
ones.
right.
Yeah.
Someone hits them
We
with
all
the
want-
reply. That's right. Wow.
Wow, that was incredible. I think that went pretty much how I could have hoped it went. And I thank
Banger.
you guys for
Thank
being
you for
great.
having us on. friends.
For having such a hectic energy, we still reined it in.
Yeah.
at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, that's right.
The
That's
question
right.
really got us suddenly into
Yeah.
like work mode. We
Yeah,
became like scholars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
He's
right.
dropping the big words. You know?
I think at one point you said editorially, which I thought was a really
Yeah,
nice
that's
word.
right. If you don't mind my saying, this experience has been logarithmic.
Oh, all right.
I'll take it. Thank you, Miles Woods
That's right.
Yaz Chintaluru. I wish you well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Think Tank
Thank
is
you
adjourned.
for having us.
Yeah, thanks for being in the tank.
This
with
has
me.
been Think Tank.
This has been Think Tank. 1, 2, 3.
We are the Think Tank, and this is our final answer.
That's it for this episode of Think Tank. Thank you for watching. Think Tank is brought to you by Equal Citizens, a nonprofit with the mission to fix democracy by establishing truly equal citizenship. More information at equalcitizens.us. If you have a question you'd like to ask the Tank, please submit your question to our Citizens Create page at citizenscreate.us. Think Tank is an Ajax Inc. production with production services provided by Matchbook Pictures, sound equipment provided by YJ Gold. Our executive producer is Ann Hamilton. Think Tank is produced by Vivian Gray. Writer is Samantha Lee. Our director of photography is Laura Muhlenweg. Our gaffer is John Laverman. I'm Karan Menon. You can find me on social media at the Karan Menon. And I'll see you on our next episode.
Hi, my name is Vivian. I'm the producer of Think Tank, and unfortunately for you, the host of this fact-checking statement. If you're wondering what that chewing sound is. I unfortunately gave my pet bunny rabbit her dinner as soon as I hit record, and I'm unable to stop at this moment. A few disclaimers before we get into this section. Most importantly, and obviously, I am not an expert. And additionally, as stated at the beginning of the episode, Think Tank with Karan Menon is a Citizens Create project, and Citizens Create is brought to you by Equal Citizens. So this is not an official document or statement from Equal Citizens. This fact check itself is defined as a personal casual research effort that briefly outlines from my own perspective statements of fact and their validity, all is subject to my own biases, and a few more things just about my methodology. I try not to list statements that were followed or preceded by expressions of a question, idea, or feeling. So like if someone was, I feel that, I think that, what if, maybe, providing that they were not relevant to like the exploration of another existing statement. And if something's obviously a bit, it's a bit. I didn't include that. And I will move through this extremely quickly. The full document has the research and sources used. I only reference the quote and then the interpretation / conclusion. In the future, we hope to not only expand the quality of this portion, i.e. not have to listen to me the whole time. And we also want to provide a space for y'all to contribute to the show and the conversation. So an announcement about this will hopefully come very soon. So let's make this quick. Fact number 1, Miles talks about a quote in Moneyball at the start of the film. The actual quote from Moneyball is, "It's unbelievable how much you don't know about the game you've been playing all your life," and that's attributed to Mickey Mantle. Fact number 2, Miles says, "I can tell you where Donald Glover went to high school, DeKalb School for the Arts." That is verified. Fact number 3, Miles talks about Derek Comedy, which he says is Donald Glover's college sketch group. And he references a specific sketch, Keyboard Kid, which he watched either in 2007 or 2008. This is verified. Fact number 4, in reference to Derek Comedy, Miles talks about it being pre-Community and that Donald Glover had not even released his mixtape, I Am Just a Rapper, yet. Conclusion on this is a little bit more complicated. So the description of Derek Comedy being early in Donald Glover's career is supported, as well as the sentiment of Derek Comedy be, ending close to other major releases of projects in Donald Glover's career. The actual order of the dates, which is all available on the actual document here. But the actual order of the dates goes Mystery Team, then Community aired, I Am Just a Rapper was released, and then the last YouTube video on Derek Comedy's channel was posted, and this is the last apparent Derek Comedy project to date. Fact number 7, Miles says there are models in other countries of socialized healthcare. The conclusion on this is verified with the most relevant description of socialized healthcare is considered to be the beverage model, which is found in Great Britain, Spain, and New Zealand. Hong Kong also uses this model. A relevant clarification here, though, is that universal healthcare coverage, socialized medicine, and single-payer systems are not interchangeable terms. Fact number 8, Miles says, I think the concept of free healthcare has to apply to basically everybody. Maybe there are caveats to that. Maybe if you're in Canada, maybe it doesn't apply if you're incarcerated. The conclusion on this is it's verified on the basis of the care available to the Canadian public, by and large differs from that available to incarcerated individuals. It's verified on the existence of other caveats in the healthcare eligibility, in specific reference to what they deem per territory and province as medically necessary, and the inadmissibility status in regards to like who is eligible in Canada. There are inconclusive findings on specific financial differences or language of coverage in the billing of the incarcerated individual. So what is covered and not covered in their specific system. And again, it differs by province. Fact number 9, Miles says, we know that that's not how it works in the United States, right? That it's a private system with a public option. So this is verified. And if you're on the visual portion on YouTube, you can see the complex machinations of that in this chart. Fact number 10, Miles says, so the government collects taxes, right? So they have hella money, and mostly they're like, I would love to buy more missiles. The conclusion here, if we take the literal meaning of missiles being the largest, expenditure in the government budget. That is not verified in terms of the overall government spending. In terms of discretionary spending, the highest category is defense, though, if we are taking it more to the broader sense of defense. But just looking at the expression of fact of like inefficiency, I did want to add this section, which is the articles referenced support expression of inefficient spending. So this is similar utilization amounts to countries with similar GDP, yet higher prices, possibly due to the complexity and nature of the US healthcare system itself. So essentially, our usage of the healthcare system is on par with other countries, yet our prices are higher. And the articles attribute this to the literal structure of the system itself and its complexity by the sheer administrative costs. So in conclusion, the efficacy of the expenditure, which in my research question I found was the expression of fact, not the literal connotation here. It is verified in that fact. Fact number 11, Miles says, I guess as it currently stands, right, there's an incentive structure for the private sector to be able to make money off healthcare. That is verified. For many reasons referenced in this document, but that is verified. Fact number 12, Karan says, what is primary care? Yaz says, that's like your family medicine doctors, emergency medicine doctors. I don't know if I'm fully explaining with the breadth of primary care. And it's verified in the sense that the professionals that Yaz referenced can be attributed to that category. Fact number 13, Yaz says, if you can go to the doctor more often, you go to the hospital less often, which reduces healthcare costs. So it's possible to not actually increase the cost of healthcare and still make it free and accessible. This is verified on the basis that research supports that adjusting to more of a framework of preventative care saves expenditure on healthcare in the long term. Free was kind of too wide to define, as we've discussed in interpretation of the meaning of that. But in terms of a general idea of expanding coverage to be specifically a single-payer universal healthcare system, for example, research also supports potential savings on national healthcare expenditure. Fact 14, Yaz says, people without healthcare don't get treated for anything until they're really sick. They go to the ER. The current policy is kind of universally is that if someone goes to the ER, you always treat everyone you got with everything you got. This is verified with the clarification that my research question was specific to, do people have a hesitancy to seek out care in general if they're uninsured? And does it lead to more emergency situations? Yes. Fact number 15, Yaz says, a heart attack, very common, right, in the US. I think it's #1 killer in the world. This is verified with the clarification. My research question was specific to heart disease in general. Fact number 16, Yaz says, in regards to heart attacks and heart disease, that's something you can manage with medication your whole life. A clarification here is my research question was using a specific example to manage an underlying cause that puts individuals at risk of heart attacks and strokes. In that regard, verified. Fact 17, we're trucking along here. Yaz again is discussing, the hesitancy to seek care until it's an emergency. He says, right now, we're paying for people who do not have health care. They get really sick. We're paying those costs. Original podcast statement, in its literal meaning, does need further clarification. There's, a lot of ways that can be interpreted. So my research question is assuming, does the lack of preventative care and access to insurance cause higher healthcare expenditures? This is verified. Fact number 18, Yaz expresses that insurance companies want you to have preventative care. Miles suggests that it's to pay less. Yaz says, yes, pay less in the future if you get sick. It's not possible to prove per se that all insurance companies want, the absolute of all and the subjectiveness of that, they want that. More likely, coverage of preventative care from these companies is due to the Affordable Care Act requiring coverage of preventative care. And you will find in the full document, this is not without pushback from the healthcare, private healthcare industry. So it is not verified that all companies want this. Fact number 19, Miles, in regards to what the true cost of an item is in the medical field, says one of the few things you can actually die from withdrawal from is alcohol. This is verified. Fact number 20, Miles says they have medical beer, believe it or not. And you can believe it. It is verified. Clarification, it's not the only or first choice of recommended treatment today. Fact number 21, Yaz is explaining how there are things that you might not feel but will cause problems later down the line. And one example he offers is high blood pressure. This is verified. There are exceptions, but the idea that the majority of folks won't feel it is verified. Fact number 22, Miles says there's an incentive to make money off people's illnesses. This is verified, but I want to provide some clarification here. I was looking at one example of a drug as a study. And so there was a hepatitis C drug that, when it was released, made a lot of money. And then the revenues, as people were cured, began to go down. And this article puts the summary of that trend as, so would declining revenue still be enough to cover the cost it took to make the drugs possible in the first place? Definitely, but pharmaceutical companies don't just care about making their money back. They care about making a ton of money back for their shareholders. So is there incentive to make money off people's illness from these statements? Yes. Fact number 23, Miles is talking about, free healthcare polling really well, and he offers 75% as a number. This one's a little bit more complex. Really well was too subjective to prove, in my opinion. And moreover, there's a lot of variance, again, in definitions of free healthcare, universal healthcare. So I was looking at it more from like a popularity of opinion of role of government in coverage, and the opinion just in general on the state of healthcare in the US. From this regard, the expression is verified. Fact number 24, in regards to Starbucks, Miles says, I believe they do offer healthcare, but it's very difficult to get the number of hours you need or whatever. It is verified in fact that they do provide some form of coverage based on certain factors. Fact number 25, Karan and Yaz are having an exchange about, the existence of folks in the United States who are uninsured versus insured. Yaz says, a good amount do, a good amount don't. That's a problem. A good amount is too subjective, but based on the fact that as of 2023, 8% of folks were uninsured and 92% of folks had some sort of health insurance, whether it's a private plan or a public plan. That mere existence of difference is verified. Fact number 26, Miles, in discussing roads, says they are fully in the government's hands. This is verified with the clarification, it's not fully in the government's. That's not the language used on the Congressional Budget Office, for example, but they use almost all. And I do have examples of private roads if you're interested in infrastructure. Fact number 27, I'm not going to go through all these. They're all related to this topic, but I will mention the end of Karan's quote here, which is, people with more money can even influence who your candidates are when it comes to who's in office. That's where it feels like things are tipped so out of our favor. This is speaking to the general idea here that they work through of, power of the individual vote and big money in politics. First and foremost, a clarification that due to the number of statements made under this unifying topic, I had to summarize it into a question of, what incentivizes policymakers and how the power of an individual vote compares to the power of super PACs. In regards to what incentivizes them, at one point, it's brought up, the power of the vote. It's verified that issue voting can correlate to government responsiveness, so things the public cares about. However, that the opposition of that is brought up is verified as well. So super PACs and dark money provide the ability for one person's vote to have more influence over another person's vote on the basis of money. That is verified. And I do want to explain that better because, again, I am not an expert. I will bring up this one specific quote from the Brennan Center for Justice. Today, thanks to Supreme Court decisions like Citizens United, big money dominates political campaigns to a degree not seen in decades. Super PACs allow billionaires to pour unlimited amounts into campaigns, drowning out the voices of ordinary Americans. Dark money groups mask the identities of their donors, preventing voters from knowing who's trying to influence them. And races from a congressional seat regularly attract tens of millions in spending. It's no wonder that most of us believe the super wealthy have much more influence than the rest of us. And if you are seeing the visual portion, please see these links, look at all these charts from Open Secrets if you so care, and also relevant to verify that the individual does have contribution limits versus the super PAC, 3,500 per election for a candidate committee in 2025 is the current limit. Fact number 28. Yaz says public opinion can change stocks. This is verified. Fact number 28, part 2, because I made a mistake. Yaz says Kylie Jenner can change the stock market in a day. This is verified. Fact number 29, Yaz says there's some people working 24/7 on problems like this. We just never hear from them, Instead, we hear from the celebrities about it. And then slowly we're starting to see that everybody in power is previously famous. Few things here. It's not true in the literal sense that we never hear from experts. But my research question was interpreting the meaning as why it appears to the general public that there is a lack of expert voices in policymaking, especially in healthcare. And considering that question, it's verified on the basis that there is evidence to support barriers to the translation of evidence to policymaking, as well as the general split vote in America over whether scientists should play a role in policymaking. Another clarification here is I'm unable to prove the literal meaning in the claim that everyone in power is previously famous in an upward trend. So my research question was reframed to, is there an increase in the correlation of celebrity status and politics, as well as an emphasis on celebrity input? And this is verified due to the emergence of social media, just in nature, and brief expressions of increase in the number of politicians from news articles who are former celebrities. Fact number 30, Yaz says we're editing genes, verified. Fact number 31, Yaz, in terms of like science and latest treatments, says we're not educating people or patients enough, and that creates some mistrust. I was looking at a specific case study in COVID-19 and how misinformation impacted the death rates. This is verified from the article on the suggestion that lack of evidence-based information negatively impacts health. Fact number 32, Yaz is just addressing like the confusion felt by the public on what to trust in medicine. And Karan like pitches like microchips and vaccines as an example. So the microchips themselves not true, the existence of the sentiment true. Fact number 33, Miles says, which is to say a great number of doctors come from some kind of wealth, end quote. And in that lead up to that statement, he says he was told a statistic that over 50% of graduates of medical schools graduate with no medical debt. The conclusion of this is the 50% number is inaccurate. 27% is the more accurate percentage of medical graduates who graduate with educational debt. However, in terms of like the purpose of that statistic to support the claim that a great number of doctors come from some kind of wealth, that is substantiated. That point is verified. Fact number 34 is arguably ridiculous, but I'm being very literal in this whole process. So therefore, when I responded to the question of how long has it been since I pressed record, I said it's been 1 hour, 24 minutes. Now, this is verified. Even though the time code you see might be different than that at that moment, that's due to mic tests, etc., warm up at the beginning of the start. Fact number 35, our last fact. Yaz says when it comes to the person without insurance to the CEO of an insurance company, all have families that will be in a hospital at some point. It is not possible to verify the absolute and exclusive language to hospitals quoted here. However, Yaz has been previously expressing, and that same point is here, that we are all united in sickness, and it's a part of the human experience. So in the true meaning of this statement, not the literal, it is verified. If you listen to all of that, whoa, nice. And thank you. And thank you for listening to the first episode of Think Tank.